The lecture hall of the Galactic Academy stretched wide and tall, its walls made of a material that shifted colors based on who looked at it. To the Calorites it appeared crystalline and blue. To the Vesk it seemed warm and orange. To Do-Hyun Kim, the only human in the room, it looked like polished silver metal. Do-Hyun sat in the third row, his standard-issue datapad resting on the curved desk in front of him. Around him, students from a dozen different species settled into their seats. The classroom smelled strange to him, a mix of ozone and something sweet he could not identify. He had been at the academy for 3 months now, ever since humanity joined the Galactic Concordance, and he still was not used to being the only one of his kind in most rooms. Professor Velthar entered through the main door. The Calorite instructor was tall, nearly 8 feet, and his body was made of what looked like living crystal. Light moved through him in patterns that Do-Hyun had learned meant different emotions. Right now, the professor glowed with steady blue light, which meant he was calm and focused. "Good morning, students," Velthar said. His voice came not from a mouth but from vibrations in his crystalline form. A translator device built into the room converted it to sounds each species could understand. "Today we begin our major project for this term." The students quieted down. Do-Hyun noticed Taeyong, a Vesk student with 4 arms and gray skin, leaning forward with interest. Nearby, Mireille, a Yulnar whose plant-like body shifted from green to yellow in the light, turned one of her sensory stalks toward the professor. "This term we will study war rituals," Velthar announced. "Every civilization in the Concordance has sacred ceremonies performed before battle. These rituals connect warriors to their ancestors and give meaning to combat. Your assignment is to research and present your species' traditional war chants and pre-battle ceremonies." Around the room, students began making notes. Do-Hyun wrote down the assignment but felt confused. War rituals seemed straightforward enough, but something about the professor's explanation felt incomplete. Velthar continued. "The Calorites, my own people, have sung the crystal hymn before every battle for the past 200,000 years. The words have never changed. The melody has never altered. It connects us to every Calorite warrior who has ever lived." The professor's body glowed brighter with what Do-Hyun recognized as pride. "The Vesk," Velthar gestured to Taeyong and the other Vesk students, "perform the 4-arm dance and recite the ancestral march. This tradition is over 50,000 years old." Taeyong's skin darkened with honor at the mention. His 4 arms moved in a brief gesture of acknowledgement. "The Yulnar," the professor looked at Mireille, "sing the photon hymn, which is actually encoded in your genetic memory. Your ancestors sang the same song 300,000 years ago." Mireille's leaves rustled with satisfaction. "Each of you will present your species' war ritual to the class in 4 weeks. You will explain its history, demonstrate the ceremony, and discuss its significance." Velthar paused. "Are there any questions?" Do-Hyun raised his hand slowly. Several students turned to look at him. He was still a curiosity here, the human, the representative of the species that had only just reached the stars. "Yes, Do-Hyun?" Velthar's light shifted to a curious green. "Professor," Do-Hyun said carefully, "when you say war rituals, do you mean modern ones or ancient ones? And which dead language should I use?" The classroom went completely silent. Velthar's crystalline body stopped glowing entirely for a moment, which Do-Hyun had learned meant complete confusion. Around the room, students stared at the human. "I do not understand your question," Velthar said slowly. "What do you mean by modern versus ancient? What do you mean by dead language?" Do-Hyun felt heat rise to his face. He had clearly said something strange, but he was not sure what. "Well, humans have different war songs from different time periods, and many of them are in languages we do not speak anymore, so I was wondering which ones you wanted me to present." Mireille's leaves turned a dark orange, which Do-Hyun had learned meant skepticism or disbelief. "You have multiple war rituals?" she asked. "Yes," Do-Hyun said. "Many of them. Hundreds, probably. Maybe thousands if you count all the different cultures." "That is impossible," Taeyong said flatly. "War rituals are sacred. They are passed down unchanged from the beginning of a species' history. You cannot have multiple versions." Do-Hyun shook his head. "But humans do. We have war songs from ancient Korea that are completely different from war songs from ancient Greece. And those are different from songs used in medieval Europe. And those are different from what soldiers sing now." The professor's light shifted through several colors rapidly, which meant he was thinking hard. "Do-Hyun, please explain more clearly. Are you saying that humans have changed their war rituals over time, Yes, sir. Many times. And you have war rituals in languages your species no longer speaks? Yes, sir. Like Latin or Old Norse or ancient Sumerian. We have battle hymns and war chants in all of those, but nobody speaks those languages anymore. They are dead. A student in the back, a floating gas being named Keltor, made a sound like wind through a tunnel. How can a language die? How can knowledge be lost? It happens when cultures change or get conquered, Do-hyun tried to explain. When the Roman Empire fell, Latin eventually stopped being spoken as a regular language. But we still have records of Roman war songs. But surely, Velthar said slowly, you still perform these ancient rituals. To honor your ancestors? Some people do for historical reenactments or ceremonies. But in actual combat? No. Modern human soldiers use completely different traditions. Some units do not use any ritual at all. The classroom erupted in shocked sounds. Mirai's leaves turned bright red. Tae-young's forearms crossed over his chest in a defensive posture. Even Professor Velthar's calm blue light flickered with alarm. No ritual at all? Mirai said loudly. How do your warriors find honor? How do they connect to the sacred nature of combat? Do-hyun shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Most modern human soldiers see combat as a job that needs to be done, not really as something sacred. We try to be efficient and effective. This is barbaric, another student muttered. Velthar held up one crystalline hand. Please let us remain respectful. This is clearly a significant cultural difference. The professor's light stabilized back to blue, though it was dimmer than before. Do-hyun, I'm going to give you a modified assignment. Instead of presenting one war ritual, I want you to document this phenomenon you describe. Show the class examples of how human war rituals have changed over time. Yes, sir, Do-hyun said quietly. I must be honest, Velthar continued. I am skeptical that what you describe is accurate. War rituals are fundamental to sapient species. They are how we make meaning from violence. They connect us to our deepest past. The idea that they could change or disappear or exist in multiple forms goes against everything we know about galactic civilization. I understand, Professor, but I can prove it. Very well. You will present in 2 weeks. I am very curious to see what you bring to class. As the lecture ended and students filed out, Do-hyun heard whispers around him. Some students sounded curious. Others sounded disturbed. Mirai floated past him and paused. Your species is very strange, human, she said. Her leaves were still tinged with red. I am starting to understand that, Do-hyun replied. Tae-young approached from the other side. I will help you prepare your presentation, the Vesk said. I want to understand this thing you describe. It sounds impossible, but if it is true, it is important. Do-hyun nodded gratefully. Thank you, Tae-young. As he walked back to his quarters, Do-hyun thought about the assignment. He had not expected such a strong reaction to a simple question. But now he understood something important. To every other species in the galaxy, war rituals were eternal and unchanging. The idea that humans treated them as temporary, disposable, or optional was not just strange. It was almost frightening. He had a lot of work to do. Do-hyun spent the next 3 days in his quarters, surrounded by holographic displays and data files. His small room was barely big enough for his bed and desk, but right now it looked like a library had exploded inside it. Floating screens showed images of ancient warriors, text in dozens of languages, and video recordings from human history. He rubbed his eyes and took another sip of coffee, which he had brought from Earth in careful rationing. The Academy's food synthesizers could make something that tasted similar, but it was not quite right. A chime sounded at his door. Come in, he called out. The door slid open and Mirai floated inside, her plant-like body pulsing with curious yellow light. Behind her came Tae-young, who had to duck slightly to fit his tall frame through the doorway. We came to help, Tae-young said simply. Mirai's sensory stalks swiveled to take in all the floating displays. This is really real? All of this? All of this and more, Do-hyun said. He gestured to a screen showing ancient Korean soldiers. This is from the Three Kingdoms period of Korea, about 1,500 years ago. These warriors sang battle songs before combat to build courage and coordinate their movements. He touched the display and sound filled the room. Deep male voices chanted in Old Korean, a rhythmic and powerful sound that made Tae-young's skin ripple with appreciation. What are they saying? Mirai asked. The translation is rough, but it is about protecting the homeland and honoring ancestors. Pretty standard for war songs. Doyun switched to another display. But here is something from a completely different human culture, from about the same time period. Now the sound changed to harsh, shouting voices. The language was Old Norse, and the words spoke of Valhalla and dying with honor in battle. These are both from your species? Taeyong asked. From the same era? Yes. Humans spread across our planet and developed separate cultures. Each one made its own traditions, but they are the same species, Mirai said slowly. How can the same species have different sacred traditions? Do-hyun shrugged. We just did. Different environments, different threats, different beliefs. It all led to different cultures. He pulled up more examples. Ancient Sumerian battle hymns, Egyptian warrior chants, Mongolian throat singing used by cavalry before a charge, Japanese samurai reciting death poems before duels, Scottish bagpipe marches, Zulu war dances. With each example, his two alien classmates became quieter. This is all before your space age? Taeyong finally asked. All of this is before our industrial age, Doyun corrected. These are all at least 200 years old. Some are over 4,000 years old. And these languages. Mirai touched one of the displays showing ancient Sumerian writing. Your species no longer speaks this? No. Sumerian died out completely thousands of years ago. We only know it now because archaeologists translated old tablets and monuments. But the songs remain, only as recordings or written text. Nobody performs them in actual warfare anymore. Taeyong sat down heavily on Doyun's bed, which creaked under his weight. This is difficult to understand. When my ancestors first sang the ancestral march 50,000 years ago, they sang the exact same words I would sing now. Every Vesk warrior across all that time shares the same ritual. It connects us all. I understand, Do-hyun said. But humans do not work that way. Our connections to the past are different. He pulled up a new set of files. Now here is where it gets really different. These are from human wars in the industrial age. The displays showed soldiers in trenches. The Great War, World War I. Do-hyun played audio of soldiers singing in the muddy trenches, songs about going home, songs mocking the enemy, songs about their suffering. These songs are not sacred, Mirai observed. They sound sad and angry. They are. By this point in human history, warfare had changed. It was mechanized, industrial, deadly on a massive scale. The old heroic songs did not fit anymore, so soldiers made new ones. Do-hyun showed them more. World War II with radio broadcasts and propaganda songs. The songs were in English, Russian, German, Japanese, Italian. Every nation had different songs, different purposes, different meanings. Your species fought itself? Taeyong asked. These are all human nations? Yes. The worst wars in our history were humans fighting humans. And each side had different war songs? Yes, sometimes the songs were about courage and honor. Sometimes they were about ideology or hatred. Sometimes they were just about keeping morale up. He pulled up more recent examples. Military cadences from the late 20th century. Soldiers jogging while chanting in rhythm. The words were simple and repetitive, designed to keep people moving together. These do not sound sacred at all, Mirai said. They sound like work songs. That is exactly what they are, Do-hyun agreed. By this point, human militaries treated war as a profession, not a sacred calling. The songs were functional, not spiritual. Then he showed them the final examples. Modern combat footage, special forces operations, naval deployments, airstrikes. The videos played in silence. Where are the songs? Taeyong asked. There are not any. Modern human special forces often operate in complete silence. They use hand signals and encrypted radio communication. No chants, no songs, no rituals at all. The room was quiet except for the hum of the holographic displays. Mirai's leaves had turned a deep purple, which Do-hyun had learned meant she was deeply troubled. This is what I do not understand, she said finally. Without sacred ritual, how do your warriors know they fight for something meaningful? How do they connect to the long history of their people? Do-hyun thought about how to answer. They connect through other things. Through training together. Through loyalty to their unit. Through belief in their cause, whatever that cause might be. But they do not need ancient songs to give them meaning. But the songs are not just about meaning, Taeyong said. They are about continuity. When I sing the ancestral march, I am the same as every Vesk warrior who came before me. I am part of something eternal. Humans do not have that in warfare, Do-hyun said quietly. We change too fast. Every few hundred years, sometimes every few decades, warfare changes completely. New weapons, new strategies, new technologies. The old songs stop making sense, so we make new ones or abandon them entirely. That sounds lonely, Mirai said softly. Do-hyun nodded. Maybe it is, but it also makes us flexible. We adapt to whatever war becomes. He pulled up one more file. Let me show you something that might help you understand. The display showed two timelines side by side. On one side was the Vesk species war ritual, a straight line stretching back 50,000 years. The same song, the same words, the same meaning. On the other side was humanity. The timeline looked like a tree with thousands of branches, each one splitting off in different directions. Korean songs here, European songs there. African traditions splitting into dozens of variations. Modern military cultures abandoning songs entirely. We do not have continuity, Do-hyun explained. We have evolution. Constant, rapid, chaotic evolution. Tae-young stared at the display for a long time. Is this why your species advanced so quickly? You have only been in space for a few hundred years, but you developed faster than most species. Maybe, Do-hyun said. We are good at letting go of things that do not work anymore. Even sacred things. That is frightening, Mirai whispered. Why? Because if you can abandon sacred war traditions so easily, what else might you abandon? What happens when your ethics become inconvenient? What happens when morality stops being useful? Do-hyun felt a chill. He had not thought about it that way. We do not abandon morality. That is different, is it? Mirai's leaves rustled with agitation. You have shown me that your species treats nothing as permanent. Everything changes, everything evolves, everything can be discarded when it no longer serves a purpose. Why would your values be any different? Because values are not the same as tactics, Do-hyun said. But even as he spoke, he wondered if that answer would satisfy anyone. Tae-young stood up. We should help you prepare this presentation properly. The class needs to understand this, but they also need to understand it correctly. If you present this wrong, they will think humans are dangerous savages. Some of them already think that, Do-hyun muttered. Then we will prove them wrong, Tae-young said firmly. Mirai and I will help you. We will make sure the presentation shows not just the changes, but the reasons for them. Mirai's leaves slowly shifted from purple back to yellow. Yes. I want to understand this better before I judge it. The three of them spent the rest of the night working on the presentation together. Do-hyun explained the historical context for each change in human war rituals. Tae-young helped organize the information in ways that would make sense to alien minds. Mirai asked difficult questions that forced Do-hyun to think deeper about his own species' history. By morning, they had the outline of something powerful, not just a presentation about war songs, but a window into how humanity thought about tradition, change, and survival. Do-hyun looked at his two alien friends and felt grateful. This assignment had started as a simple question about which war ritual to present. Now it had become something much bigger, something that would challenge everything the Galactic Concordance thought they understood about warfare, tradition, and civilization itself. He just hoped the class would be ready for it. The Academy Battle Strategy Lab was located 3 levels below the main campus. Do-hyun had never been inside before. The room was enormous with a domed ceiling that could project entire star systems. In the center was a holographic battlefield that could simulate combat scenarios from any species' military history. Professor Velthar stood beside the main control console, his crystalline body glowing with anticipation. The entire xenoanthropology class had gathered for today's special session. Word had spread about Do-hyun's upcoming presentation, and several other professors and students had asked to attend. Today, Velthar announced, we will test theories with practice. Do-hyun has made remarkable claims about human warfare traditions. I have decided we should examine these claims using our simulation systems. Do-hyun felt nervous. His presentation was not supposed to happen for another week, but the professor had moved it up. Apparently, the Academy administration wanted to see this for themselves. We will run combat simulations using different species battle doctrines, Velthar continued. First, we will observe traditional approaches. Then we will examine the human approach. Please, everyone observe carefully. The professor activated the simulation. The holographic battlefield appeared, showing a planetary surface with 2 opposing forces. One side glowed blue, the other red. This simulation shows a Calorite defensive operation, Velthar explained. Watch what happens when our forces detect an enemy approach. In the hologram, the blue forces arranged themselves in precise geometric patterns. Then visible waves of light spread out from their formation. Sound filled the room, a beautiful crystalline chime that rose and fell in complex harmonies. "That is the crystal hymn," Velthar said with pride. "It has been sung before every Calorite battle for 200,000 years. It serves multiple purposes. It coordinates our formations through resonance frequencies. It intimidates enemies with its beauty and power. It connects each warrior to our eternal past." The hymn lasted for exactly 4 minutes and 17 seconds. Then the blue forces advanced in perfect synchronization. "Notice the psychological effect," Velthar said. "The enemy hears our hymn and knows they face an ancient and noble people. They understand they fight against the weight of history itself." The simulation ran through the battle. The Calorite forces fought with precision and discipline, their movements flowing like music. "Now, observe a Vesk scenario," Velthar said, switching the simulation. This time, the blue forces were Vesk warriors with their 4 arms. Before engaging, they performed the 4-armed dance, their limbs moving in patterns that looked both beautiful and threatening. Then came the ancestral march, a deep, rhythmic chant that seemed to shake the ground. "The dance has been performed the same way for 50,000 years," Taeyong said quietly, watching his ancestors' traditions play out. "Every movement has meaning. Every step honors those who came before." The Vesk simulation forces charged with overwhelming physical power, their 4 arms wielding multiple weapons. The ritual had clearly prepared them mentally and physically for combat. Several more simulations played. The Yulnar with their photon hymn, which made their plant-like bodies glow with stored solar energy. The Keltorians with their wind chorus, a haunting song sung by their gas-formed bodies. Each species had ancient, unchanging rituals that preceded their combat operations. Each simulation showed the same pattern: ritual first, then battle. Sacred preparation followed by honorable combat. "Now," Velthar said, his light shifting to curious green, "we will examine human scenarios. Dohyun has provided me with several examples from different eras of human history." The first simulation loaded. Ancient Greek hoplites appeared on the battlefield, their bronze armor gleaming. "This is from about 2,500 years ago," Dohyun explained. "Ancient Greek warriors called hoplites. The Greek forces formed up in a phalanx formation. Before advancing, they sang a paean, a hymn to their gods. The song was strong and martial, and it clearly gave the warriors courage." "This looks familiar," a student observed. "A pre-battle hymn just like our traditions." "Yes," Dohyun agreed. "But watch what comes next." The simulation jumped forward in time. Now it showed medieval European knights armored in metal. Before battle, priests blessed them and they recited Christian prayers. "Different words," Mireille noted. "Different language, different gods, but still a ritual." "Keep watching," Dohyun said. The next simulation showed Napoleonic-era warfare, massed formations of soldiers with muskets and cannons. They sang patriotic songs and revolutionary anthems before marching into battle. "Still songs," Taeyong said. "Different songs, but the pattern remains." "Now watch this," Dohyun said quietly. The simulation shifted to World War I. Soldiers in trenches. The view focused on a small unit preparing for an assault. There was no singing, no hymns, just the sergeant giving quiet orders, soldiers checking their weapons, and then climbing out of the trenches into no man's land. The silence was shocking. "Where is the ritual?" a student asked. "There is not one," Dohyun said. By this point in human history, industrialized warfare had made old battle songs feel meaningless. Some units still sang, but many did not. They just fought. How did they find courage without the sacred songs? Another student asked. They found it in each other. In their training. In loyalty to their squad. In anger at the enemy. In fear of punishment if they refused to fight. In lots of different things, but not in ancient rituals. Professor Velthar's light flickered rapidly. "Show us a modern human scenario." Dohyun nodded and loaded the final simulation. It showed a modern special forces operation. A small team of 6 soldiers infiltrating an enemy position at night. The class watched in complete silence as the human team moved through the simulation. They communicated with hand signals and brief radio whispers. They used technology to scan for enemies. They moved with practiced efficiency and struck with sudden violence. Not once did they perform any ritual. Not once did they sing or chant. They simply analyzed the tactical situation, identified weaknesses, and attacked with overwhelming precision. The operation was over in minutes. That is barbaric, someone whispered. That is efficient, another voice countered. Velthar paused the simulation. Do-hyun, are you saying that modern human forces engage in combat with no sacred preparation at all? Many of them, yes. They prepare through training and planning, but not through ritual. They see combat as a problem to solve, not a ceremony to perform. The room erupted in debate. Students argued with each other in a dozen different languages. The translation system struggled to keep up. They have no honor. One student shouted. They have no inefficiency, Mirai said thoughtfully. Notice how the human simulation forces adapted to each era. The ancient Greeks fought like ancient Greeks because that was the best way to fight with their technology. Medieval knights fought differently because they had different technology. Modern soldiers fight completely differently because their technology allows it. But they lost their connection to the past, Taeyong said. His voice was not angry, just sad. They lost the sacred continuity. Or they chose effectiveness over tradition, Do-hyun said. Every time human warfare changed, we had a choice. Keep the old rituals or adopt new methods. Usually we chose new methods. Why? Velthar asked. Why sacrifice the sacred for the merely practical? Do-hyun thought carefully before answering. Because we wanted to win. Because we wanted our soldiers to come home alive. Because warfare kept changing so fast that holding on to old traditions would get people killed. But at what cost? A student challenged. If you can abandon your war rituals so easily, what else might you abandon? Your ethics? Your morality? Your mercy? The question hung in the air. Do-hyun felt the weight of it. This was what Mirai had asked him before, and he still did not have a perfect answer. Watch something else, he said instead. He loaded a different human scenario into the simulator. This one showed a human medical unit during a war. The simulation showed doctors and nurses treating wounded soldiers from both sides of a conflict. They worked desperately to save lives, showing no favoritism between friend and enemy. We abandoned our war rituals, Do-hyun said quietly. But we created the Geneva Conventions. We made rules about how to treat prisoners and wounded. We built the idea of war crimes, that there are limits even in combat. We did not abandon morality. We just separated it from ritual. Show me more, Velthar said. His light was cycling through colors rapidly, a sign of deep thought. Do-hyun showed more simulations. Human forces stopping mid-battle to allow medics to collect wounded. Human commanders refusing orders they considered immoral. Human soldiers showing mercy to defeated enemies. But he also showed the opposite. Instances where humans committed atrocities. Times when morality broke down. Moments when the lack of sacred ritual seemed to allow terrible things. You see, Do-hyun said. We are not perfect. Without sacred rituals to guide us, sometimes we do terrible things. But we also created new structures to limit those terrible things. Not rituals passed down from ancient times, but rules and laws we chose to create. Professor Velthar shut down the simulations. The room went quiet. I need time to think about this, the professor said. What Do-hyun has shown us challenges fundamental assumptions about civilization and warfare. We have always believed that sacred continuity in war rituals is what separates civilized species from barbarians. But humans show us something different. They show rapid change, adaptation, and the choice to make new rules rather than follow ancient ones. Is that civilization or chaos? A student asked. I do not know yet, Velthar admitted. His crystalline body pulsed with uncertain colors. Do-hyun, you will still give your full presentation next week. I want you to address the question that keeps coming up. If humans can abandon their war rituals, what prevents them from abandoning everything else? What makes you different from simple barbarians who follow no rules at all? Do-hyun nodded slowly. I will try to answer that, Professor. As the class filed out, Do-hyun heard fragments of conversation. Some students sounded fascinated. Others sounded horrified. A few sounded thoughtful. Taeyong approached him. You have shown us something disturbing, my friend. My people find identity and meaning in our unchanging traditions. The idea of abandoning them is like abandoning ourselves. I understand, Do-hyun said, but humans found identity in change itself, in our ability to adapt and evolve. That is what worries people, Mirai added, joining them. Evolution is unpredictable. Tradition is safe. You have shown us that humanity chooses the unpredictable path. That is frightening to species who have survived for hundreds of thousands of years by staying the same. Do-hyun looked at both of his friends. Then I need to show them why our way works. Why change is not just chaos. Good luck, Taeyong said seriously. You will need it. The virtual reality historical recreation chamber was the Academy's most advanced teaching facility. It could recreate moments from history with perfect accuracy, allowing students to experience the past as if they were actually there. Today, Do-hyun stood at the chamber's entrance with his presentation materials loaded and ready. Inside, he could see Professor Velthar and the assembled class, along with at least 20 additional observers. Word had spread throughout the academy about the human student's controversial presentation. He took a deep breath and entered. The chamber was currently displaying a neutral gray space. As Do-hyun reached the center platform, faces from a dozen species watched him with a mixture of curiosity and concern. Thank you all for coming, Do-hyun began. He tried to keep his voice steady. Last week I showed you simulations of how human warfare changed over time. Today I want to explain why those changes happened. Not just what we did, but why we did it. He activated the first historical recreation. The gray chamber dissolved, and suddenly the class stood in an ancient Korean battlefield. The year was 642 AD during the Three Kingdoms period. Warriors in armor surrounded them preparing for battle. The sounds of drums filled the air, rhythmic and powerful. The Korean soldiers moved in perfect coordination with the drum beats. This is the Battle of Hwangsanbeol, Do-hyun explained. My ancestors used drums and battle chants for practical purposes. The drums coordinated troop movements. The chants built courage and helped soldiers move as one unit. The scene played out around them. The Korean warriors sang as they marched, their voices strong and unified. It looked like the sacred war rituals of other species. This looks traditional, Velthar observed. Sacred and ancient. It was both, Do-hyun agreed. But watch what happens next. The scene shifted forward in time. Now they stood in another Korean battlefield, but the time period was different. The soldiers wore different armor and used different weapons. This is several hundred years later. Same people, same land, but the warfare changed. New weapons, new tactics. The old battle songs did not fit anymore, so they created new ones. The scene shifted again and again. Korean warfare through different dynasties. Each era had different songs, different rituals, different approaches. We did not abandon tradition because we wanted to, Do-hyun explained. We abandoned it because holding on to it would get people killed. When warfare changed, we had to change with it or die. But why did your warfare change so often? A student asked. Other species have used the same basic tactics for thousands of years. Do-hyun changed the scene. Now they stood on a Chinese battlefield watching gunpowder weapons being used for the first time. This is why humans kept inventing new technologies. Gunpowder changed everything about how we fought. Suddenly, armor that had protected warriors for centuries was useless. Tactics that had worked for thousands of years stopped working. The scene shifted to medieval Europe. Knights in armor charging on horses. Then it jumped forward to show those same knights being mowed down by early guns. Each new technology made old rituals obsolete. We could keep performing ancient battle chants, but they would not save us from bullets. So we adapted. Mireille's leaves had turned a thoughtful green color. You changed out of necessity, not desire. Exactly. But there is more to it. Do-hyun changed the scene again. Now they stood in multiple locations at once. The chamber's technology showed different human cultures side by side. Vikings in Scandinavia, samurai in Japan, Zulu warriors in Africa, Aztec soldiers in the Americas. All of these existed at roughly the same time period, but they all had completely different war rituals. Different songs, different ceremonies, different sacred traditions. But they are all human, Taeyong said, confusion in his voice. Yes, humans spread across our entire planet, and each group developed independently for thousands of years. We did not have one unified culture. We had thousands of separate cultures, and they often fought each other. The scene showed various human groups in conflict with each other. The scale of human-on-human violence was staggering. Several students looked disturbed. Your species fought itself more than it fought other species, Velthar asked. We had no other species to fight, Do-hyun said quietly. We were alone on our planet. All our wars were against each other, and every culture thought their war rituals were the sacred and correct ones. He changed the scene to show the Mongol invasions of the 13th century. This is what happened when different human cultures with different war traditions met. The Mongols had throat singing and horse-based tactics. The Europeans had Christian prayers and castle defenses. The Chinese had gunpowder and Confucian military philosophy. When they fought each other, the culture with the most effective approach usually won, regardless of whose rituals were older or more sacred. "That is brutal," someone whispered. It was, and it taught us a harsh lesson. Sacred traditions do not stop arrows. Ancient songs do not defeat cannons. If you want to survive, you need to be effective, not just traditional. The scene shifted to show the Industrial Revolution. Factories producing weapons at massive scale, warfare becoming mechanized and industrialized. By this point in our history, Do-hyun said, warfare had changed so completely that old rituals felt meaningless. Look at this, the chamber showed World War I trenches. Soldiers huddled in mud, waiting to charge across no man's land into machine gun fire. Some of them sang quietly to comfort themselves, but the songs were not ancient battle hymns. They were sad songs about home and peace. These soldiers were not warriors in the ancient sense. They were ordinary people forced into industrial slaughter. The old ideas about honor and glory in combat died here, in this mud. The scene was grim and horrific. Students watched in silence as the simulation showed the reality of modern warfare. Do-hyun changed the scene one more time. Now they stood in a command center from World War II. Officers studying maps and making strategic decisions, radio operators coordinating movements across entire continents. This is when human warfare became truly global and technological. Battles were fought and won by logistics, intelligence, and industrial capacity. A soldier's courage still mattered, but so did fuel supplies, radar technology, and code breaking. Where do ancient war chants fit into this kind of conflict? They do not, Veltar said softly. They cannot, exactly. So we stopped using them in actual combat. Some military units kept traditions for ceremonial purposes, but when it came to real fighting, we focused on what worked. A new figure appeared in the chamber. It was a hologram of an older human man in academic robes. Do-hyun had arranged for this guest appearance. Everyone, this is Professor Jinwoo Park. He is a human military historian currently visiting the academy. I asked him to join us today. Jinwoo bowed politely to the assembled students. Thank you for having me. I have been listening to your discussions about human war rituals, and I wanted to offer some perspective. Please do, Veltar said, his crystalline body glowing with interest. Jinwoo walked through the holographic World War II command center. When other species look at human warfare, they often see chaos and barbarism. They see us abandoning sacred traditions and they wonder if we have abandoned honor itself. He gestured around the room. But I want you to understand something important. We changed our war rituals because we hate war. The statement hung in the air. Hate war? A student asked, confused. But you fought so many wars. Yes, Jinwoo agreed. Too many. And every single war taught us how horrible it is. Other species seem to have made peace with warfare. They have created beautiful rituals that make it sacred and honorable, but humans could not do that. Every time we fought a war, we came away traumatized and determined to never do it again. He changed the scene to show the aftermath of battles. Wounded soldiers, destroyed cities, grieving families, so we kept changing how we fought. We kept trying to make warfare faster, more efficient, more decisive. Not because we love violence, but because we want it to end as quickly as possible. We do not sanctify war with eternal rituals because we dream of a day when war will not exist at all. The chamber showed scenes of humans creating the United Nations, signing peace treaties, establishing international laws about warfare. We made rules, Jinwoo continued. The Geneva Conventions, laws against war crimes, treaties banning certain weapons. We did not inherit these from ancient tradition. We created them because we needed them. Because without sacred rituals to guide us, we needed other structures to prevent ourselves from becoming monsters. Mireille spoke up. But if you hate war, why are you so good at it? Why do human military forces often outperform species with millions of years of experience? Jinwoo smiled sadly. Because we practice on each other. For thousands of years, humans fought humans. We learned from every defeat, adapted after every loss, changed everything that did not work. We evolved our warfare faster than any species in the galaxy because we had no choice. Adapt or die. Change or be conquered. That is a grim way to live, Taeyong said. It is, Jinwoo agreed. But it made us who we are. Flexible, adaptive, always changing. We do not hold on to traditions that do not serve us, even sacred ones. Some species might see that as a weakness. We see it as survival. Professor Velthar's light cycled through several colors. This raises a question I must ask directly. If humans can abandon sacred war traditions so easily, what prevents you from abandoning ethics when they become inconvenient? What stops you from becoming pure pragmatists who care only about effectiveness? Jinwoo looked at the professor seriously. That is the right question to ask. And the answer is this: we separate the sacred from the tactical. War rituals were tactical. They served a purpose in combat. When they stopped serving that purpose, we changed them. But our core values, our ethics, our morality, those are not tactical. Those are sacred. He changed the scene to show human rights movements, protests against unjust wars, soldiers refusing illegal orders. We argue constantly about what is right and wrong. We protest, we resist. We evolve our ethics just like we evolve our tactics. But we do it consciously through debate and struggle, not by blindly following ancient tradition. Is that not dangerous? A student asked. Ethics that change? Maybe, Jinwoo admitted. But ethics that never change can be dangerous too. Slavery was traditional in many human cultures. Should we have kept it because it was ancient? Or were we right to abandon that tradition? The question silenced the room. Do-hyun stepped forward again. What Professor Jinwoo is trying to explain is that humans make choices. We do not just follow the path laid down by our ancestors. We look at our traditions and we ask if they still serve us. If they do, we keep them. If they do not, we change them. That is true for war rituals, and it is true for everything else. Including your values? Velthar asked. Including our values, Do-hyun confirmed. We used to think slavery was acceptable. We changed. We used to think women were inferior to men. We changed. We used to think conquest was glorious. We changed. Each time we chose to evolve towards something better. Or what you think is better, Mireille pointed out. True, Do-hyun admitted. We make mistakes. Sometimes we change in the wrong direction. But we keep trying. We keep evolving. That is what makes us human. The chamber returned to neutral gray. The historical scenes faded away. Professor Velthar stood quietly for a long moment. Finally, his light settled on a calm blue. This has been enlightening and disturbing in equal measure, the professor said. You have shown us that humanity's relationship with tradition is fundamentally different from ours. Where we find safety and continuity, you find it in change. Where we honor the past by preserving it, you honor it by learning from it and moving forward. Is that acceptable to the concordance? Do-hyun asked carefully. I do not know yet, Velthar admitted. But I think we need to understand it better. Thank you for this presentation, Do-hyun. You have given us much to think about. As the class filed out, students clustered in small groups, talking intensely. Do-hyun felt exhausted but also relieved. He had said what needed to be said. Taeyoung and Mirai approached him along with Jinwoo. That was well done, Jinwoo said, clapping Do-hyun on the shoulder. You represented our species honorably. Do you think they understand now? Do-hyun asked. Jinwoo looked at the departing students. Some do. Some are still afraid. But at least now they know the truth. Humans change because we must, not because we want to. And we try to change towards something better. I hope that is enough, Do-hyun said quietly. So do I, Jinwoo replied. So do I. 3 days after the presentation, Do-hyun was studying in the academy library when alarms began to sound. Not the gentle chimes used for class changes, but harsh warning tones that meant something serious had happened. His datapad lit up with an emergency broadcast. All students were to report to their dormitories immediately. A security situation was developing. Do-hyun ran back to his quarters, his heart pounding. In the hallways, he saw other students hurrying in different directions, their various forms of body language all showing fear and confusion. Once in his room, he activated his communication console. The Academy's newsfeed showed breaking information. A remote colony on the edge of Concordance space had been attacked by the Ravager Horde, a group of barbarian raiders who refused to join the galactic civilization. The colony was called Haven's Rest. Population of about 50,000. Mostly Colorite and Vesk civilians. The Ravagers had struck without warning, and the local defense forces were overwhelmed. Concordance military ships were en route, but they were still hours away. Do-hyun watched the news feed with growing horror. Live footage showed the colony under siege. Buildings burning, civilians evacuating in panic. Then his personal communication channel activated. The call was marked as encrypted military priority. He answered it, and his sister's face appeared on the screen. Lieutenant So-hee Kim looked tired and serious. She wore the uniform of the Human Expeditionary Force, the small military contingent humanity had contributed to Concordance defense. So-hee, Do-hyun said, relief and worry mixing together. Are you safe? For now, she said. Listen, I do not have much time. We are being deployed to Haven's Rest. Our ship is the closest Concordance military asset to the colony. Just your ship? How many of you are there? 43. It is a small crew, but command is authorizing us to assist because we can get there fast. So he glanced at something off-screen. Do-hyun, I wanted to call because I know you have been dealing with questions about how humans fight, about our lack of traditional war rituals. Yes, Do-hyun said quietly. Well, the whole galaxy is about to see exactly how we fight. This operation will be broadcast to Concordance observers. Academy Command specifically requested that students in xenoanthropology programs be allowed to monitor it as a learning experience. Do-hyun felt ice in his stomach. They want to test us. Probably, so he agreed. They want to see if human methods actually work, or if we are just barbaric and lucky. So I wanted you to know, what you are going to see might look frightening to your alien friends, but trust me. Trust that we know what we are doing. I trust you, Do-hyun said. Be safe, So-hee. I will try. Take care, little brother. The transmission ended. Do-hyun sat in his room staring at the blank screen. Then his datapad chimed. Professor Velthar was summoning all xenoanthropology students to an observation room. They were going to watch the Haven's Rest operation live. When Do-hyun reached the observation room, he found it packed with students and professors. Large holographic displays showed multiple views of the situation. One screen tracked the various Concordance ships moving toward Haven's Rest. Another showed the colony itself, still under attack. A third displayed tactical data and communication channels. Professor Velthar stood at the front of the room. Students, we are witnessing a real combat situation. The Concordance has authorized this observation for educational purposes. You will see how different species approach military operations. Mirai and Taeyong found Do-hyun and sat beside him. Is your sister really going into combat? Mirai asked, her leaves tinged with worried orange. Yes, Do-hyun said. There are only 43 humans on that ship, Taeyong said, looking at the tactical display. The Ravager force is estimated at over 200 raiders. On the main display, a Concordance cruiser arrived at Haven's Rest. It was a Calorite ship, part of the regular defense fleet that had been patrolling a nearby sector. The class watched as the Calorite commander opened a communication channel to the Ravagers. He broadcast the Crystal Hymn, that beautiful and ancient war song that had been sung for 200,000 years. The hymn resonated through space, transmitted on all frequencies. It was a formal declaration of intent, a sacred challenge that followed proper military protocol. The Ravagers responded by intensifying their attack on the colony. They do not honor the traditions, Velthar said, disgust in his voice. True barbarians. The Calorite ship engaged, its weapons firing in precise patterns coordinated with the Crystal Hymn's rhythm. It was beautiful and effective, but there was a problem. The Ravagers had fortified positions on the colony's surface. The Calorite ship could attack from orbit, but that would endanger civilians. A stalemate developed. More Concordance ships arrived. A Vesk destroyer performed the four-armed dance in space, its weapons turrets moving in the traditional patterns. A Yulnar support ship broadcast the Photon Hymn. Each ship followed proper protocol. Each one gave the Ravagers fair warning before attacking. Each one fought with honor and tradition, and none of them could break the stalemate without risking massive civilian casualties. Then the human ship arrived. It was smaller than the other Concordance vessels, a frigate-class ship designated the Perseverance. On the tactical display, it appeared as a green marker moving fast toward Haven's Rest. The human ship is hailing, an observer announced. But there was no war hymn, no ritual broadcast, just a simple message on military channels. Concordance forces, this is Perseverance. We are moving to assault positions. Request you maintain orbital overwatch and prepare to extract civilians. That was it. No ceremony. No sacred challenge. Just cold tactical communication. Do-hyun watched his classmates react. Many looked shocked. Some looked disgusted. The Perseverance did not slow down or stop to broadcast intentions. It entered Haven's rest orbit and immediately launched small assault craft toward the surface. "They are not performing any ritual," a student said. "They are just attacking." "Watch," Do-hyun said quietly. On the display, the human assault team hit the ground fast and hard. The observation room's systems picked up their communication channels. The students heard rapid technical chatter. "Alpha team suppressing fire on the east barricade. Bravo team moving to flank 30 seconds. Charlie team confirm civilian evacuation route clear." No songs. No chants. Just efficient, professional communication focused entirely on the tactical situation. The human team moved through the Ravager positions like water flowing around rocks. When the Ravagers expected a frontal assault, the humans flanked. When the Ravagers fortified a position, the humans bypassed it. When the Ravagers tried to use civilians as shields, the humans extracted the civilians first before engaging. It was not beautiful like the Calorites' synchronized warfare. It was not powerful like the Vesk's charging assault. It was something else entirely. It was effective. "They are not fighting with honor," a student protested. "They strike from behind, they use deception, they do not give the enemy a chance to prepare." "They are fighting to win," Mireille said softly, "and to save civilians. Notice they have not harmed a single colonist." 47 minutes after the human team landed, the Ravager positions collapsed. The raiders who survived fled back to their ships and retreated. The colony was secure. The observation room sat in stunned silence. On the display, Lieutenant So-hee Kim appeared. She was reporting to the Concordance commander. "Haven's Rest is secure. 0 civilian casualties from our operation. Ravager forces are retreating. We are standing by to assist with humanitarian relief." The Colorite commander's response came across the channel. "How did you—" "You did not perform any pre-battle ritual. You gave no formal challenge." "No, sir," So-hee said calmly. "We assessed the tactical situation and acted accordingly. The Ravagers do not honor traditions, so performing rituals would only waste time and endanger civilians. But without the sacred ceremonies, how did your warriors find the courage to fight?" So-hee looked tired. "Sir, they found courage in their training, in each other, and in knowing that civilians were dying while we talked. They do not need ancient songs to tell them to do their jobs." The transmission ended. Professor Velthar turned to address the room. "You have now seen human military operations in a real scenario. I want to hear your thoughts. Was this honorable warfare or effective barbarism?" Arguments erupted immediately. Some students praised the humans' results. Others criticized their methods. The debate grew heated. Do-hyun stood up. "Can I say something?" The room quieted. "My sister is on that ship," Do-hyun said. "I just watched her risk her life to save people she has never met. People who are not even her species. She did not do it for glory or honor. She did not need an ancient ritual to give her courage. She just did it because it was right." He looked around the room. "You have spent weeks asking me if humans can be trusted because we abandon our war traditions. You worried that without sacred rituals we might abandon morality too. But you just saw the answer. Humans do not need rituals to tell us to protect the innocent. We do not need ceremonies to tell us to fight against evil. We choose to do those things because we believe they are right." "But you fight without honor," a student insisted. "No," Tae-young spoke up. "They fight without ritual. That is not the same thing. Honor is about choices, not ceremonies. The human team could have bombed the Ravager positions from orbit. It would have been faster and safer for them. But they chose the dangerous ground assault to protect civilians. That is honor." Mireille's leaves had turned a bright, thoughtful yellow. "I think I finally understand. We make war sacred through ritual. Humans make peace sacred through choice. They treat war as a necessary evil to be ended quickly, not a ceremony to be performed beautifully." Professor Velthar's crystalline body glowed through several colors before settling on a deep, contemplative blue. "This has been the most educational lesson I have taught in 300 years, the professor said. Do-hyun, your presentation and now this demonstration have challenged everything the Concordance thought we understood about warfare and civilization. What will happen now?" Do-hyun asked. "I will be submitting a full report to the Concordance Council. They will need to decide if humanity's approach to warfare is acceptable within our alliance." Velthar paused. "But I will be recommending that it is. Not just acceptable, but valuable." "Really?" Do-hyun was surprised. Yes, because you have shown us something important. For millions of years, the species in this galaxy have fought wars the same way our ancestors did. We perfected our rituals, made them beautiful and sacred, and we thought that was civilization. But perhaps we just made peace with war. We sanctified it instead of trying to transcend it. The professor gestured to the display showing Haven's Rest, now safe and secure. Humans have not made peace with war. You hate it. You fear it. And because you do, you are willing to change everything about how you fight if it means ending conflicts faster and saving more lives. That is not barbarism. That is hope. The room was quiet as students absorbed this. There is one more thing, Velthar said. I asked Do-hyun to explain what prevents humans from abandoning morality when it becomes inconvenient. I think we have our answer. Humans do not follow rules because they are ancient. They follow rules because they choose to. And that choice, renewed every day in every situation, is perhaps stronger than any tradition. Later that night, Do-hyun received another call from So-hee. She was back on the Perseverance, looking exhausted but alive. I heard about the observation, she said. How did it go? I think we changed some minds, Do-hyun said. Maybe not all of them, but some. Good, because I want you to understand something, Do-hyun. Out here, when things went bad, I did not think about ancient Korean battle songs or warrior traditions. I thought about making sure my team came home alive and those civilians stayed safe. That is what mattered. I know, Do-hyun said, and I think the galaxy is starting to understand that too. So he smiled. The galaxy better get used to humans, because we are here now, and we are not going to change who we are just to match ancient traditions. No, Do-hyun agreed. We will keep changing. Keep adapting. Keep evolving. That is what we do. That is what we do, so he repeated. Take care, little brother. I will call you when I can. The transmission ended and Do-hyun sat alone in his quarters. Through his window he could see the stars. The vast galaxy that humanity had finally reached. They were the youngest species in the Concordance. The newest members of galactic civilization, and they would never have war rituals that lasted for hundreds of thousands of years unchanged. But maybe that was okay. Maybe humanity's strength was not in preserving the past, but in constantly building toward a better future, not in sacred continuity, but in brave choice. Somewhere out in that vast galaxy, the species of the Concordance were learning that civilization came in different forms. That tradition was not the only path to honor. That change was not the same as chaos. And humanity, young and strange and relentlessly adaptive, would show them all what it meant to evolve.